Mara, a sharp, funny, and guarded woman of 39, had fled the burnout of a high-pressure city restaurant kitchen to open the Hearth in the small coastal town of Miller's Crossing. Her bakery, specializing in pastries, coffee, and tea, had quickly established itself as the center of the town's morning rhythm. It was a typical February morning, where the wind was so biting cold you could feel it in your bones. The bell over the bakery door made a little jingle as it opened, the sound too small for the rush of cold that followed. "Morning," a man in the doorway said, stamping snow off his boots. "You say that like it's not below freezing," Mara replied. He smiled, slow and amused. "I'm an optimist," she snorted. "You're in the wrong town for that." The man, Evan, a landscape architect working on rewilding a local park, came to the counter. He appeared regularly the last few weeks, arriving most weekdays around 7:30 for his usual order. "Oat latte?" she asked. He nodded. "Please, and—" He hesitated, his eyes drifting to the almond croissants. "One of those." "Risky choice," Mara warned, "because if you like it, you'll start craving it, and I'm not responsible for repeat addiction." He laughed. "I'll take my chances." As she prepared the coffee, Mara asked, "New in town?" "Couple months," he said. "I'm working out by the old Cottonwood Park." "That place?" Mara glanced over her shoulder. "The one with the broken swings and the duck pond that's mostly mud?" "The very same," he confirmed, sounding amused, trying to make it less tragic. "That's ambitious," she said. "Or optimistic," he countered. He clarified that he was a landscape architect, working on restoration, including native plants, new walking paths, and possibly a community garden. Mara recognized him. "You're the guy with the sketches. You sit there until your coffee gets cold." He accepted the observation. "I get distracted," he admitted. "By what?" she pushed. He folded his arms on the counter. "Mostly the cinnamon rolls disappearing." Mara slid the latte and croissant across the counter. "You really need more hobbies." He took a sip, closed his eyes, and breathed out. "This is really good." "I know," she stated. "You got a name, Parkman?" "Evan," he replied. "Mara," she answered. "In case you feel like giving feedback on the croissant in long, poetic paragraphs." He broke off a corner of the pastry with exaggerated seriousness. "I'll draft an essay." "Good. Business is slow. I'll need something to read." Mara watched him settle at his usual table. Evan was all steadiness, carrying himself like someone who decided nothing would rush him without his consent. By noon, the sky had turned to a bruised gray, and the lights flickered twice before going out completely, silencing the espresso machine and the country radio mid-chorus. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," Mara breathed. "That doesn't sound good," Evan said from the corner. Mara leaned against the counter, frustrated. "Perfect, just perfect. Snowstorm plus power outage equals no coffee, no oven, and definitely no customers." He stood and walked over. "You okay?" "Do I look okay?" she snapped, then apologized. "Sorry, that's not for you. That's for the universe." "Understood," Evan replied calmly. "I've got a flashlight in the truck, and I saw some candles on that shelf by the door." "That's for ambiance," she said, "not actual survival." "Ambiance can be upgraded," he countered. "You want light, or you want to curse at the dark for another 10 minutes?" "Fine, candles," Mara said. While Mara gathered mason jars and unscented candles, Evan returned with a heavy-duty flashlight, transforming the back of the bakery into a pale circle of clarity. "There," he said, "instant atmosphere." "Atmosphere doesn't pay my bills," she muttered. "Maybe not," he conceded, "but it might keep people inside once they wander in." "Who's wandering in during this?" she asked, gesturing at the aggressive streaks of snow outside. He shrugged. "People get stuck, or lonely, or bored. Light's a beacon." "Are you always like this?" she asked. "Like what?" "Calm, positive, philosophical about life." "Not always," he considered, "but I've learned you either fight what you can't control or you work with it." "That sounds like something from a mindfulness podcast," she grumbled. He chuckled. "I promise I don't charge a subscription." The bell jingled again, admitting Leo Mitchell and his 5-year-old daughter Sophie, whose building pipes had burst. "You two are insane. Why are you out?" Mara demanded. Leo explained they were seeking refuge. "Can we hide here for a bit? I'll buy whatever's left." "You can take all the day-old muffins," Mara said. "Power's out." "No lights?" Sophie asked. We've got candles, Mara replied, softening, and I bet I can still warm up some milk on the gas stove. Sophie brightened. Hot cocoa? It'll be lukewarm at best, Mara cautioned. We'll call it cozy cocoa, Evan said. Sophie recognized him. Are you the park man? I might be, Evan said. Depends who's asking. You're fixing the swings, she declared. That's the plan, said Evan. They're squeaky, and the slide shocks you, Sophie stated seriously. Feedback duly noted, he replied solemnly. As Mara lit the final candle, the bakery transformed, living up to its name, and more people arrived, seeking warmth. A delivery driver, Mrs. Hargrove, and 2 high schoolers. Mara heated the milk, muttering, This is not how I scheduled my day. Evan stood nearby. You think this is bad for business? He asked quietly. I had orders. I can't bake, can't brew coffee, can't stop people from finding you, he finished. Mara was caught off guard. Right now, this is the only place in walking distance with warm anything, he explained. You didn't plan it, but it's still happening because of you. I just made cocoa, she muttered. You made a room people walked into when everything outside got worse, he said. That counts. Witnessing the unexpected comfort, Mrs. Hargrove sharing her scarf and Sophie offering half her muffin to the driver, the knot in Mara's chest loosened. When the power returned 3 hours later, a strange intimacy remained. After the last customer left, Evan said, You handled that well. Mara, exhausted, leaned against the counter. Handled what? My minor breakdown in the walk-in fridge? You went into the fridge to have a breakdown? Best insulation in the building, she said, and I was near the whipped cream in case I needed comfort. He smiled. Seriously, you kept people warm, fed, and weirdly relieved. Yeah, well, she sighed. I still lost half a day of business. True, he agreed, but you gained something else. If you say community, I swear I'll start charging you double for coffee, she warned. He laughed. I was going to say loyal customers, but yeah, community too. You're very persistent, she noted. I plant things, he said. I'm used to waiting for results. She asked him, thinking of her high-pressure past, How do you do that? Just wait. Not just wait, he clarified. Tend, adjust, check the soil, move things into lighter shade. Waiting isn't passive, it's just not forceful. I don't know how to not be forceful. You wait, you lose, she said, citing her old chef. Maybe in restaurant kitchens, not everywhere, Evan responded. Mara, clearing her throat, thanked him. You didn't have to stay. I know, he said simply, but you needed it. She admitted, yeah, I did. When she refused payment, he insisted on creating a debt. Then give me a debt at least, he said. What? She frowned. Let me fix the draft in that front window, he offered, pointing out cracked caulking and the loose board on the porch. Anything that tries to take your customers out is my business too. I like my coffee supply stable. You know nothing about running a business, she scoffed. Maybe, he said, but I know how to keep people from freezing or falling. She finally conceded. Fine, but if you fall off a ladder, I'm not filling out any incident reports. Deal. Evan arrived that Saturday with his toolkit and repaired the porch and window, working with careful patience. Mara, who craved urgency, watched him, noting that Evan didn't break under pressure. He adjusted. When the work was done, Mara acknowledged, All right, I owe you something. Another croissant should be sufficient, he said. You're easy to please. Not really, he said. I just know a good investment when I see one. Word of the storm shelter had turned into cozy apocalypse vibes on social media, bringing in more business. You planned this, didn't you? Evan joked one morning. Yes, she deadpanned. I bribed the storm systems. He asked if she was okay with the increase in noise and expectations. Mara admitted, I like that they're here. I don't like that I can't control whether they come back. You can't control whether plants grow, he said, but you can make the conditions right. Why is everything a gardening metaphor with you? Because everything is gardening, he said lightly. People included. Their conversations covered Mara's past. She missed the intense focus of fine dining, but not the stress. And Evan's past, including his divorce from a wife who wanted more excitement in life. I wanted to plant my feet somewhere, Evan said. I don't do well with constant motion. I travel for work to restore what's broken and leave places better, Mara blurted. That sounds lonely. Sometimes, he said, but then I find places like this, where for a little while it doesn't feel that way. Mara warned him. Careful, you're going to make me sentimental, and I have a reputation to maintain. Town's official grump with good pastries, he chuckled. I hate to tell you this, but your brand is slipping, pointing out Sophie, drawing a heart on the window. Mara's patience snapped when a new supplier arrived 30 minutes late on a hectic Wednesday. You're late, she said immediately. She harshly criticized the young driver. There's always something with you guys. I need reliability. Do you know how much time I spend fixing other people's mistakes? The bakery fell silent, and Evan closed his sketchbook. She demanded the manager's number, stating she would have a serious conversation about the arrangement. After the driver fumbled out, Evan quietly brought the crate in. Mara, shaking, tried to defend herself. He shouldn't be late. This is my livelihood. When she demanded he say something, Evan gave his honest opinion. You were right about the pattern. You're carrying a lot, he acknowledged. But, he continued gently, he's also a kid driving a delivery truck in snow on back roads. And you just gave him a story he's going to replay for the rest of the day. Mara winced. Evan insisted she could correct the mistake by being kind and still get what she needed. You're allowed to do both. Hold standards and hold grace. How are you so reasonable? She demanded. I've killed enough plants by overcorrecting, he said. Yelling at the frost doesn't bring the flowers back. When the driver returned, Mara took the initiative. Hi, can I talk to your manager? She asked. She apologized to the manager, Gary. First, I want to apologize for how I spoke to your driver earlier. It was unprofessional and unkind. I'm sorry. She then firmly discussed reliability logistics. She apologized again to the driver directly. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have talked to you like that. Everyone makes mistakes, including me, especially me. It was honest and kind, Evan said afterward. Hard combo to pull off. You did good. Mara realized that patience was staying soft while holding the line. The following week, Evan presented a proposal to Mara about the small piece of land behind the restaurant. He showed her a sketch he'd drawn up. A community garden, he said, unrolling a drawing of the weedy strip behind the hearth, transformed with raised beds, walking paths, and a small seating area. That's not simple, Mara said. It's simple on paper, he countered, harder in execution, but worth it. She worried about the time, money, and maintenance, but Evan assured her, the point isn't to prove you can control it forever. The point is to show up long enough for it to matter. He would handle the logistics and grants. She only needed to lend her gravity, because the town already trusted her. You pull people in, he said simply. Mara, seeing the community outside her window, finally conceded. Okay, show me where you'd put the first bed. Evan's smile was small but bright. Thought you'd never ask. That night, contemplating the possibility of a garden in her small, once boring town, Mara accepted that maybe this was the way to learn, by choosing, day after day, to stay in places where she could learn. She decided to tape Evan's sketch to the wall by the espresso machine, not as a commitment, just as a possibility. For now, she would take one small thing at a time. Mara left the sketch taped up longer than she meant to. At first, it was practical. She needed the wall space clear for orders and schedules, and the espresso machine's heat kept the paper flat. But days passed, then a week. Customers leaned in to look at it while waiting for their drinks. What's that? Mrs. Hargrove asked one morning, squinting. Nothing, Mara said too quickly. Just a thought experiment. Mrs. Hargrove smiled in that way older women do when they've already clocked your nonsense. Looks like hope to me. Mara pretended not to hear. The thing that unsettled her wasn't the garden itself. It was the way the idea felt anchored, like it expected her to still be here in 6 months, in a year, in a life that didn't require escape routes. She had spent decades believing survival meant staying sharp, staying fast, staying untouchable. Roots were for people who trusted the ground not to shift beneath them. Evan didn't push. That was his most dangerous quality. He came in every morning as usual, oat latte, almond croissant, a nod instead of a question. Sometimes he brought updates about the park, how the soil tested better than expected, how volunteers had started showing up without being asked, how Sophie insisted on supervising the new swing installation with a clipboard she made from cardboard. You're building something, Mara said one morning, not looking at him. So are you, he replied, equally casual. She scoffed. I sell caffeine and sugar. You sell pause, they slow down, he said. People come in here and remember how to just breathe. That landed harder than she expected. The bakery changed subtly as winter loosened its grip. Someone brought in a fiddle on Saturdays. A corkboard appeared by the door with handwritten notes. Yoga at the community hall, lost mitten, soup night fundraiser. Mara never approved it, but she never took it down either. What changed most, though, was her. She started noticing when she tensed, when her shoulders rose toward her ears, when her jaw locked like she was bracing for impact that never came. Evan noticed too, but he didn't comment. He just slowed down around her, matched her pace until she remembered she was allowed to have one. One afternoon during a lull, he asked, "What made you leave the city?" She kept wiping the counter long after it was clean. "I was good," she said finally. "Too good. People stop seeing you when you're good like that. You're just output." "And here?" She gestured around the room. "Here, if I burn something, someone teases me instead of filing a complaint." "That sounds like being seen," he said. She swallowed. "It feels dangerous." He nodded. "It is. So is not being seen." The garden plans moved from possibility to motion slowly, the way Evan did everything. Grants filed, permits approved, the first raised bed built on a gray Saturday morning with 3 volunteers and one very bossy 5-year-old. Mara brought out coffee without being asked, then muffins, then soup. At some point, she realized she was standing in the dirt, hands muddy, laughing when Leo nearly tipped a wheelbarrow. She hadn't laughed like that in years. Not the sharp kind, not the performative kind, the kind that surprised her. Later, when everyone had gone, she and Evan sat on overturned crates behind the bakery, steam rising from their mugs into the cold air. "You could still leave," he said gently. "Nothing here traps you." She stared at the dark soil, freshly turned. "That's the problem." He waited. "I'm starting to want to stay," she admitted. "And wanting something means it can be taken away." Evan considered this. "That's true." She shot him a look. "You're not helping." "I won't lie to you," he said, "but I will say this. Things that grow are already risking everything. They do it anyway." She laughed softly. "You're unbearable." "You like it," he said. She did. Spring came. The first green shoots broke through. Basil, kale, strawberries Sophie insisted on planting because happiness. Mara baked differently then, less like she was racing an invisible clock, more like she was listening. She started closing one day a week. Nothing catastrophic happened. The world did not end. One evening after locking up, she stood in the doorway and watched Evan checking the beds, adjusting a loose steak, brushing soil from his hands like it mattered. "You know," she said, "if this all fails, I'm blaming you." He smiled. "Fair. And if it works?" He met her eyes. "Then we'll tend it." Something settled between them. Not a promise, not a label, just the quiet agreement that they were choosing to show up again tomorrow. Mara reached up and turned off the lights inside the hearth. The windows glowed warm against the dark, the way they always had. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was holding the place together by force alone. She was tending something, and letting it tend her back.